This was a huge story. Actually broke open on Thursday. We were going to do a breaking segment on it, and then a coup happened inside of Russia. What do you know? And so we're getting the details fully and took the time to actually read through all the documents here with respect to the allegations of an IRS whistleblower and Hunter Biden, whether he should have been criminally charged in that case after he was offered a plea by U.S. prosecutors. Now, the White House was actually asked repeatedly about this on Friday by multiple mainstream reporters who appear to have broken even they had to admit that this looked bad and had to press the White House on it. And the White House response is stunning in their silence and really in their obfuscation. Here's what happened.
The president invited his son Hunter to the state dinner last night. I'm wondering if you could take us into the thinking and decision-making of why the president decided to invite
I'm just not going to get into family discussion, personal family discussion. As you know, Hunter is his son. I'm just not going to get into it.
Let me ask you this. If Hunter Biden wasn't the president's son, would he have invited someone who had just reached a plea agreement with federal prosecutors 2 days earlier?
A couple of things. Again, that's his son. He's a family member. It is not uncommon for family members to attend events at the White House.
Curley wouldn't answer James's question, though. Are you going to answer the question? I mean, not a reasonable question to ask, whether the President of the United States was involved, as this message seems to suggest, in some sort of a coercive conversation for business dealings by his son. Is that something, if he wasn't, then maybe you should tell us.
So can you just remind us what your colleague said from the White House counsel so we have it from you at the podium?
I would refer you to them and they will share their statement with all of you.
My question is about, you've stated that the president stands by his comment from the 2020 campaign that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with his son. And you stood at that podium and you reaffirmed that.
Is there anything that you can say with regard to this text message and what the president's son was alleging? Was the president there or not?
Have you spoken to the president about this? Have you asked him whether he was there with his son on July 30th? And there was reporting earlier in the week that after the plea agreement was reached by Hunter Biden, that the president felt relieved that that part of it was behind him. Is that true? Can you speak to his mindset?
I can't speak to that. I cannot speak to the president's mindset.
Can't speak to it. Never asked him about it. Oh, why wouldn't you ask him about it? And for those who need a refresher, this text message is insane. Put this up there on the screen. This is a direct text from Hunter Biden. It's not even being disputed. Quote, I am sitting here with my father. We would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director, I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand. And now means tonight. Z, if I get a call or a text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows, my ability to forever hold a grudge that you will not regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father.
I love the way at the end he just like strips any plausible deniability.
I am sitting here.
Just to be clear, it's my father I'm referring to.
This is Meghan
right
McCain level my father in terms of joke. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. My friends over at the Free Beacon, personal friends of mine, Chuck Ross, Joseph Simonson, and Andrew Kerr, put together a fantastic piece here called The 16 Bombshells on the Hunter Biden from the IRS laptop. First and foremost was linking his father to this Chinese deal. People aren't actually as familiar with the CEFC China energy deal that Hunter was trying to finance, but that's actually what all of this entails. The CEFC China energy deal entailed a multi-billion-dollar investment. It entailed Rosewood Seneca Partners, of which Hunter was a part of, also with John Kerry's stepson. Everybody's getting involved. The next thing that they pointed to is that Biden attended other business meetings, allegedly, with Hunter and with his Chinese business partners. What he said repeatedly is that they were at the Four Seasons Hotel. People were having lunch and stopped in. Hunter said, quote, I may be trying to start a company or try to do something with these guys. And could you? And he says, if I'm around, and he'd show up, referencing directly his father. Furthermore, the FBI had authenticated Hunter Biden's laptop a year before you and I even knew it existed, after it had been turned into the computer.
I thought it had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation.
Yeah. Not only did it have the hallmarks of Russian disinformation, they knew it was true before even the press knew about it
about
and
it.
still did not
Amazing.
ever offer any proof or any of that. My other personal favorite, and some of the tawdry details, Hunter actually deducted hooker and sex club payments from his taxes.
As one does.
Classy thing to do. Obviously, the FBI division that investigated foreign spies directly was involved in the Biden probe. The investigation into Biden actually had some porn-related origins because of some of the content that was on his laptop. Prosecutors wanted to charge Hunter with felonies, but he ended up with misdemeanors. So they specifically noted that per the level of tax evasion that he conducted, his business dealings, the text messages and more, it was very clear that he had willfully went out of his way not to pay his taxes, as evidenced by the prostitution write-offs. The Biden Department of Justice specifically actually blocked that investigation at multiple turns, according to the IRS whistleblower, and that the whistleblower's boss actually corroborated multiple other claims that were made. Hunter also currently does not have to, under the terms of his deal, pay taxes on $400,000 of income that he received from Burisma Holdings. Who out there in this world doesn't have to pay tax on 400 grand? Can you imagine that? Imagine being in such a sweet deal you could trade off of your dad's name, get 400 grand, get a sweetheart deal, and then still not have to pay taxes on it. And then finally, Krystal, my personal favorite, agents wanted to search Hunter Biden's family homes, but were shot down due to the optics of the situation, according to these whistleblowers. So, I mean, look, at every turn, we're seeing political interference here, and Hunter, you know, look, his defense is quite literally, I was a crack addict. And that's what he said. My father had no interest in this at the time, and I was in the midst of dealing with addiction. But Biden, at this point, he's got to prove it. There's this clear allegation here made in these texts and through authenticated whistleblowers that have come before, under oath, before Congress. Multiple parts of this have been verified. The Biden family continues to brush this aside and say that this isn't even worth looking into. They literally invited the guy to the freaking state dinner with the Indian prime minister the day after that he gets a plea deal before Congress and all of these text messages, or plea deal before prosecutors, and this all comes out. So this
If you were worried about optics, you might want to rethink that one.
Some of the most disgusting federal corruption that we have seen yet, just because of how naked it is and how much he actually just got off. Most of the time, just don't even investigate it. Here, they investigated and gave him a little sweetheart deal.
Yeah, I mean, listen, to be clear, this is coming from Republicans who had nothing to say when it was Jared Kushner, so hypocrisy,
You're right.
et cetera, no doubt about it. But, you know, sometimes political attacks are also real. And clearly the press feels like they have been humiliated. They were willing to cover for him to a point. And now when you have these kind of details, they have to ask him about. That's why in that clip we played, I mean, we were going through the list of, it was CNN, it was New York Times, it was NBC, it was CBS, it was every mainstream outlet that felt like for their own sake of credibility, they had to ask something on this. Now, listen, what do we know? With regard to the text message, we know that Hunter was blatantly, brazenly using his name and his proximity to power, that would be his dad, to try to score lucrative business deals. Now, the claim in the text is that Joe Biden was sitting right there. Biden has maintained he never even had a conversation with Hunter about any of his business deals. Now, that claim, his spokespeople have been remarkably unwilling to reiterate at this point. They now will say, like, he wasn't involved, but they haven't gone so far to say, once again, that he didn't even speak to Hunter about those business deals. So the president has a lot of questions to answer. You know, is that still true? Do you still maintain you had no conversations with him about it? Where were you on that day? Is it true that you were sitting next to him? Now, listen, it's also possible he was sitting there and had no idea what his, what his son in the throes of addiction was texting to this Chinese businessman. But this is way past the point that you can just brush it off. Because even if you accept the best case scenario that Joe Biden had nothing to do with this level of disgusting trading on your father's name to secure, deals for yourself is grotesque, even if it's not, unfortunately, even if it's not illegal.
Yeah, look, to be clear, I mean, unfortunately, it's not illegal to say my father, my father, my father, and then shake down a foreign guy for millions of dollars. Guess what is illegal? Not paying your taxes.
Right.
And he didn't even pay his taxes. I didn't even mention this, as I have in previous segments. remember this, Krystal, he owed $2.2 million in taxes, in back taxes, that he was not able to pay and did not have financially. He had to go to a Democratic mega donor, Hollywood lawyer, to pay his taxes for him. And the guy gave it to him as a loan or whatever to avoid the federal gift tax. I mean, who amongst us has forgotten to pay our taxes, not had the money about it, then gone to a rich friend of our dad's to bail our asses out? And that's, by the way, one of the ways that he's able to circumvent and go towards the misdemeanor charge is it's not like it's unpaid, it got paid.
Yeah.
You know, I paid you guys what you needed. That was part of the cover-up. Well, the fact that he had access to that money in the first place is itself evidence of political corruption. So, you know, I'm hopped up about this one just because it's so brazen. The level of shakedown that's happening here. I mean, look at that text message. He reads like a thug. You know, he's like, my dad is going to come and scream, you know, my dad's going to come and beat up your dad if you don't pay me millions of dollars. And
Hey,
he's
it
like,
worked.
That's the craziest thing is all of this worked. He actually did get paid $100,000 from Burisma. He actually did raise tons of money through Rosemont Seneca Partners. Then his BHG Holdings Group inside of China, remember this, he says that he's no longer on the board of the holdings group inside of China. He still has a vested financial interest to this day, millions of dollars inside of China. The GOP report that came out in 2020 detailed multiple wire transfers up to the tunes of hundreds of thousands of dollars, of which Hunter Biden and James Biden, Biden's brother, were literally using $100,000 as a slush fund to buy MacBook Pros for themselves and their relatives. I mean, it is and then the audacity to then write off some of your illicit, you know, like sexcapades effectively on your taxes on top of all of that. So you can blame addiction and all of that all you want. But here's the truth, and you've always made this point. Most addicts, they get caught, you know, whenever they boost like a radio out of a car and they get their ass thrown in jail.
Yeah.
And they don't get second, third, fifth, 15th chances.
Right.
They don't get the daddy bailing them out of prison.
Well, there's the proximity to power piece and knowing the right people, and there's the, you know, two-tier system of justice that oftentimes lets the wealthy off the hook. I mean, how many wealthy tax dodgers never get any sort of enforcement action? And it is wrong. I'm much more in favor of a law and order, white collar, tough on crime approach, because overwhelmingly who the IRS goes after is the poor and the working class. So unfortunately, the way that Hunter got away with this, like you said, like mischaracterizing these payments as loans, all of this sort of shenanigans, unfortunately, it is quite common, and people do routinely get away with it, even when their daddy isn't the vice president. But you know, in those instances, it's an attack on the integrity of our sort of like system and of fairness and justice. In this instance, it's also an attack on just the integrity of the office of the President of the United States, and raises a lot of questions about, you know, potential malign influences and how this would impact his governance, which is incredibly serious.
Yeah, I think that's all we can say about it. In terms of the further investigation, the GOP is going to be holding hearings. Let's put this up there on the screen. As I said, you know, Hunter appeared at the state dinner, and his father maintains the only reaction he has to the whole thing is, quote, that he loves his son. And you would note, Krystal, as we will recall from the debate stage in 2020, he said he did nothing wrong and I love my son. Now it's just I love my son after he's gotten
Drop that first part real quick.
That part really bothers me too. It's basically emotional blackmail. Nobody doubts that a parent doesn't love their child. Actually, the problem is you loved him so much that you let him get away with all this stuff under your nose. Or maybe you helped him out about it with a little bit of the 10% for the big guy. And in fact, if you were able to prove that you had nothing to do with it and that at the end of the day, this was basically parental malfeasance where you're like, I loved him too much to say anything, I think a lot of people could empathize with that.
Yeah.
But he refuses to tell us the truth about the very basics of the situation.
Well, and I think this has gotten past the point now where he can just dodge questions on it forever. You know, if he ever does another mainstream interview again, if he ever subjects himself to any sort of a debate situation, whether it's in the Democratic primary or in the general election, he's going to have to answer difficult questions about this. I think it's gone past the point of him just being able to ignore it and get away with an answer like, I love my son.
Yep.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.